Hi there, my name is Vince from mrtelephone.co.uk, and in this video today we're going to be talking about jelly crimps. They're the little telecom connectors that join telephone wires together. Now a lot of people don't just use them for telephone, they use them for lots of other applications as well. Now they work really well because basically it saves you having to strip the wires back and twisting all the copper together. It gives you a nice good connection and a really reliable connection. These are used in their thousands every single day and they really are very reliable. The confusing bit is there's loads of different types, so I'm going to list through the common types in this video, and then what I'm going to do is, to save the video being too long, I'm then going to do separate videos on each crimp. So if you like the look of, for example, the inline one pair crimp, then look up the video for the inline one pair crimp, and on that one I'll actually do a demonstration of putting the wires in, crimping it, and then a continuity test to show you how they work. But in this video today I'm just going to be listing the different types of crimps. Now these are used all over the world from different manufacturers. The problem is the names can vary. So I'm based in the UK, so I'm going to be calling them the names that we know them as in the UK, but it will still be relevant to other countries, because you can look at the crimp, you can then work out what the crimp does, and you will be able to match it up to whatever it's called in your particular country. Now a big manufacturer of these are 3M, so they will have their own names for the crimps, but you will find that it will be similar, or if you were to type in the name into Google, for example, you will see the other alternatives that other manufacturers do. So let's go down and show you the variety of different crimps. Now with the crimps here, the majority of them, unless I mention it, have a conductor size of 0.4mm to 0.9mm, so that's 26 AWG, which means American wire gauge, to 19 AWG. Remember, the smaller the American wire gauge, the actual bigger the diameter of the wire, and an outside diameter of 2.08mm, so just over 2mm. So what do I actually mean by that? Nice and straightforward. If you were to look at this Cat5e cable here, the actual central conductor here, the copper bit, has to be between 0.4mm and 0.9mm, which it is, because on this particular cable it's 24 American wire gauge, and remember we can go from 26 AWG to 19 AWG, and the outside diameter doesn't mean the white sheath itself, it just means the outside diameter of the actual wire, so the conductor with the plastic around it. So if you have a look at this orange one here, this one has to be under 2mm, which it is well under 2mm. Basically, the majority of telecom and data wires will be able to use any of the crimps. Where you will struggle is, for example, if you look at this very old drop wire cable here, although the central conductor may well be between 0.4 and 0.9mm, the actual sheath itself is thicker than 2mm. So if we were to try and use, for example, this crimp here, can you see that it doesn't want to fit in there? So what some engineers do is they strip back the black sheath to the copper on the inside, and then they just crimp onto the copper. But with all these crimps, you don't have to strip back the outer plastic, because they've got IDCs on the inside, which is like a metal V that cuts into the wire. So as the wire with the sheath goes into it, it cuts the outer plastic to touch the copper on the inside. So these, you don't need to strip back the insulation. You just put the wire in. You don't have to strip them back like I've done here. You just put the wire in. If you have a look at this white wire here, you just put it in like that, push it to the end, and then you push another wire that you want to join into it, and then you crimp it down, either using pliers, mole grips, or if you're going to be doing any amount of these, just get yourself the proper crimping tool, because this has been made to fit the crimps exactly. So when you squeeze it down, it will crush the lid to the perfect amount. But if you're just an electrician and you're just doing the odd job or a DIY, then you will be able to get by with just using pliers or mole grips, because with the mole grips you can adjust the jaws by moving this thing at the ends here. So get it to the right adjustment, and then you will be able to just crimp it. But obviously if you're going to be doing hundreds of these, you don't want to be using this because it'd be a nightmare. Just get yourself the proper crimpers. Now I've already done in-depth videos of how to use the jelly crimp, so I'm not going to go into too much details. This video is just about the different jelly crimps on offer. But like I said, if you were to use this one here, rather than stripping back the crimp and doing a kind of bodge job, you might as well get the proper drop wire crimp, because on these particular drop wire crimps, the hole is 3mm, and 3mm allows you to push the wire right the way to the very end. And you can see there that these are full of gel as well, so the gel pops up. But I will do a special video on these crimps if you want to know exactly how they work. Right, so the most popular type that you get is this one here called the 8A, the 2-wire connector. That's this one here. Now, they will come in a variety of styles depending on the manufacturer, but basically all they do is join 2 wires together. You see here the orange lid ones are actually made by 3M, and 3M call them a UY2 connector. So these are very common, really useful, so well worth getting these for just joining 2 wires together. Now, if you want to join 3 wires together, you're going to be using these ones here with the 3 holes. Now, with these ones, you don't have to join 3 wires together. You can just join 2 wires together, just like the 2-wire crimp. The only problem is they're a bit big for doing that. So if you've just got 2 wires together, use the 2-wire. But if you need to join 3 wires together, then you have to use one of these. Now, with these holes, you can only insert 1 wire in each hole. So don't try to get a 2-wire crimp and shove 3 wires into it by putting 2 wires into 1 hole. You may get it to connect, but it's going to be a bodge job and it's going to be a bad connection and it may fail. Or it's just hassle. You might do it and then you don't exactly know where the fault is, and if you've done a few of them and one of them fails, the time you spend trying to find that particular one, it'd be much better just to do it properly to begin with and just insert 1 wire per hole. So basically that's that one there. Again, different manufacturers call them different things and they look like different ones. 3M is called a UR connector, but on that particular one, it is a very small hole. So if you have a look at the holes there, it's small. And if you have a look at the box says it will only do an outside diameter of 1.67mm. So although the copper core on the inside still allows 0.4 to 0.9, the outside diameter is very small. It's only 1.67. But you can get what's called a UR2, which is this one here. And with this one, it has the bigger holes. So if you compare the holes between side by side, you will see that the UR2, which is this one, allows the 2.08mm. So basically the 2mm cable to be pushed into it. But this one here, just UR, doesn't allow. So be careful when you're ordering them up that you order up the correct ones. So if you're not sure which one to get, just get the UR2, because this one does a wider range of cables and it's not that much more expensive. So that's them 2 there. So the idea of them is joining 3 wires together. So for example, if we wanted to join this Cat 5e cable with this black cable to this white telephone cable, then what you would do is you would get, if we were joining the blues, you would get the blues from each cable. And then we would pop on the jelly crimp and we would use 1 wire per hole, and you push the wires to the very end of the crimp, and then you would get your pliers and you would crush down, and when you crush down it closes the lid and it joins all the 3 wires together. But as I say, I will do separate videos on this. Now that's called the 8B, that's the 3-wire. Now this one here is called an 8C and it's called a half tap connector. And what this one allows you to do is it allows you to tee into the line. It looks like just a 2-wire crimp, but if you have a look here, can you see on this side here that like it's been cut away? So the whole side's been cut away, and what this allows you to do is it allows you to tee into a working circuit without interrupting the service. So let's say if somebody was actually using the phone or using the broadband at the time, you could put your wire into here and you can tee into that service without them knowing about it, because obviously on the 2-wire and the 3-wire you physically have to cut the wires to insert them into the crimp. So when you cut those wires, the customer's lost service. But with this one here, what you do is you would have your working wires here. So let's just temporarily wrap these 2 together and just pretend that they're working wires. Right, so pretend that this blue one here is an actual circuit that's working, and pretend we've already got a crimp on here or it's just a live wire. What you would do is you would get your half tap crimp and you would put it in to it like that. Yeah, so now we've got the crimp connected into it, and we would then get our wire that we want to use to tee into it, for example the blue wire here, put it in here and then crimp the lid down. And what that does is it doesn't interrupt the service on this existing blue wire. So when we crimp the lid down, we will now have that service on this new white wire, here. So that's called a half tap crimp. Again, if you're interested in it, watch the follow-up video. Now the next one is called an 11A, and that's called a make before break connector, 11A. And what these ones do is, they are just a 2-wire crimp, but again, you can put this crimp on without the customer losing service. So let's go back to this wire here and pretend now that this is a working wire. If we were to use the 8A, which is the crimp I showed you at the beginning, we would have to physically cut this and pop the 8A on. But when it's like this, using the 11A, what we can do is, if we think that this connector here has gone bad, imagine now if there was a crimp on here, an old-fashioned crimp, what you can do is you can wiggle this 11A onto the wires like so, and push it in right the way, push it up to the top, because remember we want to keep as much wire as possible for future work. And then all you do is you crimp down using your pliers again, you crimp down on that, and what it will do is it will make the new circuit. So it makes the circuit before breaking the old bit. And there's little blades here at the end that will cut off the old crimp. So we butt that up as far as we can to the old crimp, press down, old crimp falls off, new crimp starts working, and the customer hasn't lost any service. So again, if you're interested in that, look up my next video on how to use the 11A make before break connector. Right, now these crimps here, these are new outs. These ones here are called I'm not really sure about the name at the moment. It looks like they're going to be a UY4C, or they might be known as a BT41. Basically, it's an inline 1-pair connector. Now the nice thing about these is that they're toolless, so you don't need any tool, and also it's actually quite small. So it looks big, but this takes the place of 2 of these. So for example, if I was to join a 1-pair cable together, I would need 4 holes, because remember we have 2 wires from this side and 2 wires from this side. So if we're using the 8A jelly crimps, you have to bring them up like here, and you need 4 holes. So 1 crimp would go here and 1 crimp would go here. But with this thing here, it's nice and straightforward. You just bring in 1 pair from here and 1 pair from here. So for example, if I wanted to connect up this blue and white wire here, all I would do is push them in as far as they will go, and then I just close the lid down like that, and then I get my other blue and white wire, which is here, and again I match up blue to blue and white to white blue to white blue, so blue to blue and white blue to white blue, push them all the way in as far as they'll go. And then close the lid down, and there we go, we have an inline crimp. Yeah, and it's all toolless, and these ones can be re-entered. So on all these other crimps I've showed you so far, once they're crimped down, they are then used. You can't then pop the lids off. If you try to pop that lid off and crimp again, it's not going to make a good connection the next time. So there's just a one-time use. So when you've used them, you have to cut them away and throw them away when you want to open up that particular cable again for testing. But with these ones here, they are reusable. So to reuse them, I just lift up the lid and pull the wires out. And then again, you can just push them in again, close the lid, and it's made the circuit. So these are reusable. So these are really handy, and they don't take up much room, and it's good that they're in line, because then if you were to do a repair joint, so let's say if you've cut through the cable outside and you want to do a repair joint, then you see that these 2 of these will fit nicely. I mean, you might get away with just doing 1 depending on the cable you're working with, but 2 of these would fit nicely in a joint like this. And as well, you need less slack, because with the 2-wire crimps, and the other crimps I've shown you, the wires, let's say if they're going along a wall, a cable's gone along here, along a wall, and a gardener or something's cut through that cable, you've got to have enough slack to bring those wires up to get them into a crimp. But with an inline crimp, you don't need as much slack, because the wires, when they're cut, you can just strip back a minimum amount as possible, get a little bit of slack to join those wires again together. So these are new out and they really are useful. So if you're interested in these, then again, have a look at my video on the UY4C or the BT41. Now, the other crimp I want to show you is a drop wire connector. I briefly just mentioned it earlier. It's known as a 2A drop wire connector. Now, the conductor size on this one are bigger. It goes from 0.4 millimeters to 1.3 millimeters, and the outside diameter is 3 millimeters. Now, I'm just talking about these particular ones that I've got in the UK. Obviously, depending on what country you're in, you will need to check the spec from the manufacturer of the one that you're buying to make sure it covers your cable. But basically, like I mentioned earlier, with these ones again, they use an IDC connection. So that metal V, you can just see it's here. Get the idea of what it looks like. You see that there's a slot there that cuts onto the wire. And all you do is you get your two wires, your two drop wires, and you just push them in all the way to the end. Put your other wire in all the way to the end, and then get your pliers, crimp that down, flip the lid over, and then you have a nice good connection. So they're known as 2A. Some people call them drop wire 2As or just drop wire connector. So that's those ones there. Right, okay, so now when you look around, there will be more and more things about. If you have a look at this, this is another inline connector. I don't actually sell these ones, but very similar to this one here, but it's not toolless, and you're not able to reuse it. So if you have a look, you would just put in your one pair here to your one pair there, and then the top hole will connect up one wire and the bottom hole will connect up another wire. So that's another inline one pair connector, and with this one again, you would just crush the lid down to make the connection. So that's it. All of these ones are for mainly like low voltage applications like telecoms and networking stuff. Mainly it's for the telecom markets, that's what they've been designed for, but people do use them for hobbyists and stuff, use them for other things as well. Now, if you want things for electrical work, then there's no point in using stuff like this, because the electrical market has a huge amount of things that you can use anyway. If you're interested, just look up things like Wago connectors, because then you have the lever connectors that can connect up to 5. You've got the push wire connectors. I've already done a video on the Wago connectors, so check that out yourself. You've got these special ones for lighting with the cage clamps that you squeeze to get the flex cable in, and even waterproof ones. These are not Wago, this is made by a company called Ideal. These are like wire nuts that are very popular in the USA, and this one here is actually full of gel. So if you have a look on the inside there, you can see that it's full of this gel, similar to the gel that would be used in the telecom crimps. So you can get waterproof ones themselves. So you might as well use everything for its correct application. Right, I hope you found that video useful. I'm going to do videos now on how to actually wire all these up. If you want these sort of crimps and stuff in small amounts, in 10s and 20s, then please check out mrtelephone.co.uk. That's it for this video. Take care, please subscribe for more, and please give it a thumbs up. Bye now.